Metalheads, welcome in. It is a special edition of First Look, the second time that we bring this to you, and you're like, what is it? It's a concert review, and this one is very, very special. With me, yes, is my producer, Michael Kenobi. He is responsible for about 90% of the material that you see on this program. So it is indeed a we type of segment here, and guess who we saw? Electric Callboy! And it was amazing. It was epic. You can use any of those words that fit the description, and I'm telling you what, we were so very pleased. And today we are actually going to dive into it and really give you a feel for the fact that we are now truly, we were fans already, but now we're all in after the experience we had. So, Michael, I'm going to let you open it up. And we should say, Electric Callboy, they were the headliner. There was a band called Solence from Switzerland, and then Conquer Divide, a band that is out of Michigan, but made up of an all-female group. Very good stuff, and we'll talk about the first two bands a little bit later because we want to get them love, but there's no doubt that we have to start it out with the main band, and that is Electric Callboy. Wow, what a show, Michael Kenobi.
Absolutely. So to kind of get it out the gate, right? Typically we end with a score, but I'm going to start something a little bit different. We're going to start with the score, if you don't mind.
I love it.
So in our experiences, whether it be through music videos or going to these concerts, right? It's very hard, borderline impossible for a band to receive a 10. So taking that into consideration, Electric Callboy lands themselves at a 9.99999. They're going to get as close as you can to that 10 spot.
Yes, I mean, and by the way, we both agreed on it because that was the first thing we said when we were walking, on our way to the merch table, because we kind of have a tradition now. It's only been 2 shows, but at the end of the show is when we go to the merch table, and we just kind of looked at each other and said, that was the best thing ever. And Michael gave it the 9.9, and I just nodded in agreement. So that is going to really set the tone for what we're going to bring to you, and now you get the details, right? And I think the best thing, or one of the best things, was the arrival on the scene. Now, normally when I go to a metal show, I'm getting into metal gear. I'm usually primarily in black. I'm probably wearing, some kind of concert t-shirt from a concert I went to. Usually go with the black jeans or maybe black joggers or something, Raiders hat, something like that. Well, I didn't even come close to that. Okay, I was wearing shorts, flip-flops, and a Randy Macho Man Savage short sleeve shirt and a San Diego Padres hat turned backwards, because I knew the vibe was going to be so much different. Now, we didn't know, we're like, who's really going to show up for this? But as soon as we got on the scene at R Street at Ace of Spades, which, by the way, is a tremendous venue to watch bands. I've seen so many good shows there. I know Michael would agree as well. When we saw what we saw, Michael, it was like, oh yeah. We just knew. We're like, vibes are up, vibes are good, and for good reason.
Absolutely. I mean, talk about the perfect melting pot of just the metal fan base, right, out large. And then kind of everybody in between. I mean, everyone from your traditional, I'll say, like metalheads with your Motorhead t-shirts, patched up vests, long black hair, to folks in costume, right? Whether it be from the Electric Callboy music videos, or we even had a guy in a bunny suit, which was pretty fantastic. I mean, you can't say enough about just how good of vibes the entire experience was. I mean, that fan base was just so genuinely excited to be there and enthusiastic and building off of one another with their excitement. I mean, it was truly something like I've never experienced. I mean, I've had a lot of great experiences at shows, but nothing quite to that level before. So pretty remarkable.
Yeah, the word that kept kind of coming to our minds, and listen, we're working backwards here, but I think the setup of the show was very important too, was starting with Conquer Divide, then going to Solence, which was kind of like a level up, to then Electric Callboy. Okay, so we're kind of working right in the melting the meat and potatoes of what this show is all about. but it was just fun, and the atmosphere was so good. And for the first two bands, Michael and I stayed back, and in fact got to meet our good friend Eric, and Eric was dressed up in the We Got the Moves costume, which was hilarious, and obviously he loved playing the part. And then we met another young lady, her name was Kim, who had actually flown all the way from Florida. She did a little work in Bay Area, but she was there to see the show. And in that moment when she said she was from Florida, that's when I knew. I'm like, you know what? We've got something very special here. You have to remember, and Electric Callboy fans, you know exactly what we're talking about. This is an international band that's got international fans. And here they were on a Monday night, not Friday, not Saturday, not even Sunday, Monday night in Sacramento, and it was a packed house. I know you had those special feelings too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it just goes to show, like, again, to your point, Monday night completely sold out. In fact, their entire show is sold out, or their entire tour is sold out. They just updated their profile photo, or they posted it. And you can tell just how much it meant to the band. I mean, like, we'll touch on this a little bit more, I'm sure, but every band has like their standard go-tos, like, thank you all for coming out, gotta love insert city here. But you can tell when Kevin was the one speaking on this, he said 10 years ago we played this venue. We were underneath a different name. We were one of the opening bands, and like saying without saying, like, and nobody knew us, right? Or like very few people did. So you could tell that it genuinely meant a lot to be back in that same venue all these years later. Again, to your point, selling it out. And there's no doubt in my mind that that band could have picked a bigger venue and sold it out almost as easily. But like, it meant a lot to them seemingly to like play at this same venue that they had played all those years prior.
Well, and I think that truly is what made it special, and that's why I love Ace of Spades, because it's that good go-between, right? From the bigger venue. Sometimes I think the magic gets lost in the bigger venue, and so that's why I've always been a fan of seeing like bigger groups saying, you know what, yeah, we're going to go to Ace of Spades, because it really is the perfect spot. So for the Electric Callboy, you and I decided to make the move up to the right side of the stage, and that turned out to be just a great, great move. We got in our spots, and then they came out. So just so you know, a 19-song set, which I thought was just awesome, right? Usually when you get a headliner, depending on how many bands are before, it's usually a solid 12 or 13. But 19 we got, including 3 in the encore. So we'll go ahead and start with a song that they broke out. And you and I were debating on what were they going to come out. You had mentioned We Got the Moves. I thought Hyper. I thought it was going to be one of those two. Well, those didn't come until very late in the show. They come out with Techno Train. And I thought that was genius, because the video leading into the song and the guys coming out, it was like epic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point, so that lead-in animation or video that they have that plays perfectly with the Techno Train video as is fantastic. And I think that is a very good palate cleanser, or like a good intro for like those handful of folks who may not have known Electric Callboy, like maybe the plus ones or whatever, of like, it's a good representation of like where this band can go, right? It's probably one of their softer songs, but it has like a good balance to it. And I can't laugh or like stress enough the fact that like you have this band that is able to feature choo 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 in the breakdown, and it works, and you have an entire crowd jumping up and down, like going along with them. It was fantastic.
Oh my gosh. So Techno Train really kicked it off, and then they hit everything. And you were saying, like, Michael, like, man, they really didn't miss anything. And that was so true. As you weave in and out, they did such a good job. Now, they talked in between, but it was almost like that was part of the experience, and it didn't deter from the greatness of the concert itself, because usually sometimes it can go off track, and it never did. Like, everybody was fully engaged from start to finish.
That's right. They kept it short and sweet. There was no fat to trim off of that set. You can tell that they've been at this for a while. There's a reason they were the headliner. You can tell they have like the miles and the years into this thing. And when they were talking, it was, yeah, to your point, it was to fill a space appropriately. It never felt preachy. It never felt forced. I'm sure that a lot of the jokes and things that they're sharing are ones that they'll share every single night, but it didn't feel that way necessarily. And you could tell it was at the appropriate, like, kind of transition spots. And they are incredibly funny. I mean, again, this is no news to any Electric Callboy fan, like, watching, like, just their videos, but their entire, like, stage presence and, like, what they choose to say and how they choose to say it, it is, like, they are incredibly funny guys. Like, very, very, very funny folks.
Well, to reset it for you, August 28th, a Monday night in Sacramento, the two of us got the opportunity to really bring the experience of Electric Callboy all together. And that's what we talk about in the show First Look. I described that for you. It's like, first you see the song, or you see the video, you hear the song, and then you kind of get encapsulated. Maybe you do a deep dive on whatever the band is. And the last piece of it is being able to see the band live, okay? And so, again, they went over and beyond. You already heard our score, 9.9. We did something we've never done on the show. Michael gave it to you right at the beginning, and for good reason. Two big things stuck out for me. Number one, their sounds and the voices of Nico and Kevin were better. They were better live in person. They were so clean. You could hear it. It was good. And the drops in the songs, man, they hit really hard. And that's the one piece that I do love about Electric Callboy is when you get that kind of the soft vocal and then Kevin hits it hard and you're just like, man, that just takes it to another level. So hearing that live, it was much better than when I hear it on Spotify, which, by the way, I love it on Spotify, but to get that live experience, that really brought it home for me. What about you?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, how often can you say that where a band not only is as good as they are in the produced record, but again, exceedingly better than, right? And again, to your point, like the song choices and when they chose to play which track was phenomenal. Like it was such a brilliant roller coaster and like weaving of those song choices, right? Your songs that are a little bit more like, I'll say like traditional heavy that admittedly off of their like recordings are not necessarily like my favorites of theirs. I do like the songs, but then they sprinkle in the hits just like perfectly to where like it really like pads out that time and makes it like really, really good.
So you're probably wondering, they're probably wondering like, when did the favorites like hit? I feel like things turned around when they got to Hyper Hyper, which was about
definitely
song number 12 or 13. And it just kind of went up another level. And then when they were done, they came back for the encore. And usually an encore is one, maybe two songs. No, it was three songs. And I will give you full transparency. My thought was, okay, well, what the songs that were missing were We've Got the Moves and Pump It, okay? And they dress in costume, right? So I thought for sure those two. Well, a guy in front of me says, it was like he was Nostradamus or something. He's all, oh, man, it's going to be Pump It, and then it's going to be Mind Reader, and then it's going to be We Got the Moves. And I was like, oh, dude, if they do that, that's awesome. And I didn't think in my head, wait, maybe this guy looked at a set list from a show that they did a night earlier. Well, it turned out to be the case. That was exactly the lineup, but it didn't matter. So they came out in costume for Pump It, which, by the way, is my favorite drop in any Electric Callboy song. We mentioned that when we featured it here on First Look. They went into Mind Reader, which, by the way, I didn't really know much about. That was a pretty good song. And then they hit it with We Got the Moves. So they went off, came right back on, We Got the Moves, and that was a perfect way to end the night. Your take, Michael.
Yeah, and that was the best point of the night, right? Was We Got the Moves. The fact that we talked about this on the night, and then if anybody who's following us on socials, in the video, you will see that intro to We Got the Moves. Like they stretched it out just a little bit longer than what's on the recording, and I feel like they could have sat in that moment for even longer. Like they went from a pitch blacked out venue, held it there for a moment, and then that beat comes in, bum 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 bum, and then the lights slowly come up, and they're all there front and center on the stage in costume, right? Their vests, their little wigs, glasses, everything, the little hands, right? Bum 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 bum, and they're just holding it, and I'm like, man,
and Michael,
these guys,
were you looking around like at the people, like
yes.
Everybody was like doing the bob in the head, everything? That was the beautiful thing. Everybody was bobbing the head. And it's funny because it just kind of reminds you of like a modern day version of Night at the Roxbury. right?
Yes, 100%, 100%. Yeah, it was the closest thing that I've had to almost a cult or religious experience in a long time. Like the fact that again, they could have sat there with that energy for another 10 minutes if they wanted to. Like they could have truly sat with it. It was perfect. But we are missing something. We have completely glossed over what comes in the middle of their set. What comes in the middle of their set?
Well, very unexpected. And what they did is, and by the way, there was a drum solo. The drummer did a great job.
That was cool.
It was a great drum solo. Credits for that because that's a heavy metal thing, right? Well, the guys went off, and now the stage crew comes in. They bring in a keyboard, and you're like, what's going to happen here? Well, it turns out that they go into renditions of, are you ready for this? Let It Go. Yes, Let It Go from Frozen, followed by I Want It That Way. And the voice of Nico, like, I feel like it's almost underappreciated. Like he's got a really good voice. And so
I agree.
Those being dropped in and then they come back into the heaviest part of their set there at the tail end. It was just like, man, that was cool. And something definitely as a fan that you'll remember. Like I feel
100%.
like when we talk about this 1 year, 5 year, 10 years down the line, the things that will come to us will be, we got the moves as the finisher, but then we'll go, yeah, you remember when they sing Let It Go and I Want It That Way?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. Again, to your point, they're both incredibly talented. You know, I mean, again, Nico definitely dominates those clean vocals. Dude can put out a traditional pop album tomorrow if he wanted to. I have no doubt about that, right? But I think Kevin too, like Kevin showed some chops on the cleans as well. Like definitely not anything near to Nico, like in terms of how often, right? But I mean that little bit that like he would like kind of throw in there, like he has some chops too. I mean, I like their balance off of one another. I think I mean, if you've not taken anything away from their videos and stage performance, like they play off each other remarkably well. Like it's such a perfect like kind of bromance in all the best ways. And yeah, what other metal show are you going to go to where again those are the two middle tracks with acoustic guitars and it just works. It works perfectly. And everybody again to your point is singing along. Like it was fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Good stuff. One observation I had, which I thought was pretty funny, usually when you see musicians come on, you know, they got the earbuds in the ear. I've never seen this before, but Nico came out with
the
what would look like what we're wearing right now, but even funnier. The way I thought of it was, you know how babies put on the headphones? That's what I was thinking of when I saw Nico. He had like the baby headphones on, but he worked it great. He like owned it and said, okay, this is what I'm doing. He would sometimes take, you know, part off so he could hear the crowd and everything. But I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool because if I was a front man and I could pull that off, I would certainly do it.
Yeah, I thought of the Monster Jam ones, right? That they were
yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't like it sticks out for the first few seconds, but like, and I've seen videos of there where they play live, and that's a consistent thing for him, right? So like clearly in-ears are just not for him, and it's like, hey, that's cool, right? And I think too, like something that we didn't touch on yet, I don't think at all, even in leaving the show, is between the sets and the song choices that play between them, and then those like the lead-in songs for each band was perfect.
Yeah,
was perfect. I'm trying to think of now that I say that I'm trying. What did they?
Well, it's interesting. I think it was Thunderstruck. I think that was the last song before they cut out and we went to Techno Train. And for Solence, I do remember that one clearly. It was Dancing Queen.
Yep. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like those little choices, and again, like I don't think that it's like I don't think it's so much as them being like it has to be this exact song. I'm sure that there's a list of songs to choose from, but it just so happened that on that night, on that Monday in Sacramento, that sounds like a cool book title.
There you go.
Monday on
I like that.
A Monday night at the Ace of Spades. It just so happens that the song choices that they chose to go into each band, it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
So all in all, listen up, Electric Callboy fans, you have been a big support system actually for the program. Anytime that we have featured Electric Callboy, you guys have come through, and we have featured, we were counting them, we were going over, we've done 5 videos of Electric Callboy, and so listen, this just really, I think, brought it all together and really gives me joy. And I can't wait to see him for the next time. They did mention that they were going to come back the next year. So if they follow it up, I'll be right there. Because really, I really felt the fun factor. Like I was just having a great time jumping around, smiling at people. They had a mosh pit, but it's not like your traditional mosh pit. It was like just people running around. And I for some reason, I was okay with that. I was like, okay, everybody's having a good time. And that's really what it was all about. And Electric Callboy delivered on that.
How about, speaking of that mosh pit really quick, how about the point where they split the room down the middle and Kevin starts talking about the guilty pleasure of Germany, which is kind of like what is it, like disco kind of music, right? And he's
Country
like,
music.
He's like it's our equivalent to y'all's country music. Like some of you are embarrassed to like it or say you like it, but it's kind of the thing of the country. And so he's like, everyone just find a dancing partner, even if you don't know the person, just be nice, make sure that your boyfriend or girlfriend don't find out. And then the disco ball starts going, and it's like this like very like swingy song. You're like, okay, this is kind of fun, and that goes into like their heaviest drop of anything that they make. Fantastic. As you can tell, I can't say enough good things about it.
Listen, and we wanted to make sure that we delivered on every facet of what was a great night. Thank you, Electric Callboy. You guys did such a great job. So we did want to give mention to the two bands before, give them a little love. Conquer Divide, as we mentioned, an all-female, 5 people in the band, and then Solence, which was a great surprise. They're from Switzerland. And so Conquer Divide, they come out and they have also a clean vocalist and what they call an unclean vocalist, which I think is kind of funny. And I think it was Kia, who is the clean vocalist, and Janelle, who played the electric guitar and had the unclean vocals. And they were the first band, and I think they were appropriately the first band. They were a good way to start it out, but we did have some thoughts on it. Mike, I'll let you start.
100%. So I have found out since then, and I guess I should have known this, but Kia is actually the guest vocalist on their rendition of Fuckboy on their album. Yes. So it was kind of perfect.
And we forgot about that song that was done. Yeah. That was that was a great combo.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Absolutely. So I felt like overall the sound of Conquer Divide. So when that band is coming on, right? Like they definitely had like a presence there. There were definitely people who were like rooting for them when their name would be flashed up on like the board behind them. So that was cool. Overall, just to get to it, I don't want to beat around the bush. Like admittedly, like the sound, it wasn't for me. Like I'm not knocking it. Just for me, it wasn't like quite what I would go for typically. And it's for a couple of reasons. I felt like when they started their set, I felt like the initial of it or the front of it was Janelle being like, let's go. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like this is like, I kind of had one thing in mind and then it was so consistently clean. And I don't want to knock them for that. Like Kia was fantastic. Like she has a very good sounding voice.
Absolutely.
I just felt like overall, I felt like the presence of them, and this is going to sound very silly, and I've gone back and forth on like commenting on this because it's the same thing that I praise Electric Callboy for, but I feel like there was a lot of like cutesiness to the set, and again, it sounds so disingenuous, and again, overall, like again, they're clearly doing the right thing, right? It's clearly just me, but I felt like there was just a few inconsistencies of like, all right, we're going to ask you to move again, and then we're going to play a soft song that doesn't match what it is that we're asking people to do. Like I said it on the night, I've said it a few times since, but you have a song called where you talk about feeling paralyzed and you're telling people to jump. It does not match. You got to pick one, you know?
Yes, and here's all I'll say about it is like, and we've talked about this when we looked at Lorna Shore and that band opening for Gojira and Mastodon, right? Lorna Shore is big in their own way, but they were opening up for two giants, right? And it's, I'll lightly use this term, the begging, right? The begging of movement. My advice, just based on shows that I've seen, I think you just play your music. I think you just come out and play your music and let your music dictate where that energy is going to go. You can't be begging for it because here's the problem. If you beg for it and it doesn't happen, it actually makes you look worse. And I think there was a little bit of that going on where it was like, so for me, I'm the same way. I thought Kia very clean, but what got me excited was anytime Janelle sang, because Janelle represents that vocalist that we have highlighted here on the show. When it started all with Spirit Box, right? Holy Roller began it all. We have just had this flurry of female vocalists that have been shown here on First Look. So being able to hear that, I was like, okay, she's pretty good. And I felt like you could take either one and they could go solo, but Kia to me does not represent what would be heavy metal or metal core. That just didn't do it for me. So, and then the other bandmates, I just didn't feel like there was a presence there. And so you always look for personality outside of the lead singers, and I just didn't feel that vibe.
I totally agree. I felt like the band didn't feel like a band. It felt like a series of like I didn't even get the vibe that they were necessarily friends, which I guess you don't have to be in a band.
Right.
But they made mention of the fact that like, okay, this is our drummer. She's been gone for a while, like she's just coming back, and there was like a kind of a clap, like a woo amongst like two of the people in the band.
I don't think people understood. Like,
and they were like, okay,
right,
okay. But I will say this, like I think so. In our little bit of research for this band, like they've had the name for a while, since about what? So it says between 2013 and 2017 on iTunes or Apple Music. It says 2015, give or take. But there's a big gap where they're not putting out anything until like 2021, and then they drop or are working on a record to put out this year. So in that time where they're gone, the fact that they're able to collaborate with a band like Electric Callboy that is touring the world and then get to tour with them is pretty remarkable. Again, they're clearly doing something right.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's the thing, is like they're getting it back. Obviously, probably coming out of COVID, because there was some mention of things that each of them individually have gone through, which has catapulted them back into the scene. And to then, again, get on the bill with Electric Callboy, I mean, kudos to you. So, listen, you know, we say these things because we do want to be transparent, but it does not take away from the talent that the band has. So, with that said, we roll into Solence, and Solence was, for me, unexpected. It was unexpected. Another kind of electrocore or metalcore, kind of that combination. And they brought it. It didn't start out in the beginning, but it quickly got there. And the lead vocalist, whose name is Mark, and they're from Sweden, so it's actually not Mark, it's like Mark Oltza or something like that, you know, however they would say it in Sweden. I was very impressed with this band. I don't know. To me, it almost felt like an Electric Callboy, like kind of like 2.0. Not as clean, but really Mark delivered, because he was the man, and he did such a good job, not only singing, but being able to talk in between. And when he talked in between, everything, instead of it just being a conversation with the crowd and here's what we're doing, it all had intention of leading into the next song. And to me, I thought that was very, very genius.
Yeah, no, they definitely had a presence. I would be curious to know, I should have known this, like how long they've been around. Because to your point, like I think I mentioned it on the night, that band sounded like what I thought Electric Callboy would sound like before I ever listened to them. I similar to Conquer Divide. I think Conquer Divide is more metal to my ears than Solence is, but Solence is good. Like Solence has a very great presence. To your point, that vocalist, like he really commands an audience, like the whole band does. And there was this weird thing that happened with that band. The first, what was it, like 3 songs? Like the energy was kind of weird. And then the vocalist at one point leaves the stage, and I thought it was a bit, genuinely. I thought he's going to go do something, because they were all kind of in costume, you know, like kind of had their whole get-up going. So I was waiting for that, but then he was gone a little too long. And then the guitarist left too, and I was like, oh, there's something, like something's actually happening.
Right.
I don't know what it was. All I know is a short while later, they both come back, and the energy is like, boom, 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 boom. So like,
well, and he even said it when he came on. He said, thanks for covering for me. And not knowing any of the songs, the guitarist was saying initials. I think it was like AJR, whatever. Well, it turns out it was one of their songs, but we had no clue. I thought really he was just making stuff up. Like, a YMCA. Let's go, right? No, but he was actually covering, and it was the actual song. And then when Mark came out, he actually thanked him, said, thank you for covering for me, guys. Let's get to it. And then from that point on, I think he was dynamite.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They did a very, very good job. Again, is it admittedly, is it music that I would go out of my way to listen to if I hadn't heard them on this tour? No, right? And is it up there amongst like in the realm of one of my favorites? No, not necessarily. But again, they definitely brought it. They definitely have their audience. I think too, like I mentioned this, I feel like because their presence is so good, I try to think of like other bands they could tour with. Turnstile was the first one that came to my mind as like another kind of like fun band where like I think that audience would also kind of gravitate towards this band, even though their sounds are nothing alike. I think just the energy alone, I think it's going to take them a long ways, I would venture to guess.
Yeah. Well, and I felt everything was very anthem-like. Like all their songs are built to be played live. Like their big one, which is F the Bad Vibes, which is on one of their T-shirts. And they're relatively new. They formed in like 2020, 21 and have just put out a few albums. You were just asking how long they've been along. They haven't been around that long. And so they came out of COVID. And if you listen to all their songs, it's all built around how people were feeling with COVID and trying to come out of it, dealing with depression and anxiety, because everything spoke to that. But I love the anthem-like songs. Like, I was okay with it. And, of course, we had a great moment because these bands, Conquer, Divide, and Solence, afterwards, their big thing is to engage with the crowd. They go over to their table. So when we were getting merch at the end of the show, the Electric Callboy show, they were actually still there, which was great.
Yes,
I was glad to see them still within the crowd and not have gone backstage. And, of course, we got to meet the lead singer, Mark, gave him the compliments because he truly did a good job. And we got a photo.
Yeah, and we got a photo. And I think he was so nice and personal. I think we probably could have stood there for an hour talking to him.
I think
like,
so.
Him and Eric are on the same realm of, on the same level of like people that just wanted to be Steve Buzzard's friend. Like, it was really, really charming. That Eric guy that you mentioned in the beginning, he was your buddy from the minute you were not in that venue for 5 minutes, and that guy, he had his whole life story. Right? We could have done a whole. I could probably recite his life story.
I got it all.
Yeah. I think,
and it's funny too because, and you saw this too. He had mentioned that he had done a podcast during the during the pandemic and stuff, and I couldn't even get the words out. You know what? Forget it. It was that kind of experience. Like, okay, I'm not going to say anything.
He's like, some people do these like reaction videos to Electric Callboy, and I was like, really? That's fascinating. I would never.
I love it when Electric Callboy like reacts to the reactions. I'm like, you know what? Just forget it. Keep going, Eric. Keep going.
Yeah. I think if I'm proposing this, I'm throwing this out into the ether. So to your point, the Electric Callboy fans have been nothing but receptive and very, very complimentary. It's wild to think that this journey has only been going on for 3 months with that band specifically, and how quickly they've become one of, at least for one of my favorites.
Yes.
So I am proposing. So yes, when they're here a year from now, yes, I will see them in Sacramento every time they're in town, right? But I am proposing once we hit that 100,000 subs, which will happen. I think the only thing that tops it is seeing this band in Germany.
Okay, we're going to Germany. Mm-hmm. I'm with you. Let's do it.
And I think Eric and our friend from Florida should go too.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah, we'll just have a reunion. There we go. So, hey, you guys, that is First Look, special edition. You got it from us. We went to it. It's our second concert together, and we're 2 for 2. I mean, we've seen 2 great ones. We mentioned Lorna Shore with Mastodon and Gojira. We know the story behind that. Michael's a big Lorna Shore fan. That was our first video that we featured here on First Look. And then, of course, I'm a huge Mastodon and Gojira fan. And then we get Electric Callboy. Good stuff. And then we get a new look at bands like Solence and Conquer Divide. That's what this show is all about. It's about heavy metal. And we love that you are here and hope that you were able to kind of see this all the way through and enjoyed it from start to finish. So, Michael, we got more videos to do. I'm ready for the next batch. I'm excited to dive in, and we'll just give a sneak peek on one coming up, which I'm really excited about. Job for a Cowboy. Does anybody remember that band? Well, guess what? They're back. So good stuff. Any final thoughts, Michael?
No, I was actually just going to tip that hat. I was going to say, speaking of our first video with Lorna Shore, there was a particular band that you name dropped on that very first review that we're finally going to get a reaction to. So yeah, to your point, Job for a Cowboy coming right up.
All right, for Michael Kenobi, I'm Steve Buzzard. You know what to do. Until next time, rock on!
Rock on.